People don't just eat in the summer, they eat in fall and winter too. And so I am going to show you all the things that you can have in your garden during those colder times of year. We have a flower and veggie farm in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, and we've had a few frosts. I'm surrounded by all my dead flowers, and the other night we got down well below freezing. So I am very excited to show you just how good all of my food still looks. I know it can be hard to, spend that time in the summer making space and planting, feeling like maybe it's not going to amount to anything because the cold weather is going to come and kill all of your plants. But I'm telling you guys, if you try some of these crops that I have to share, you can have these amazing harvests so late in the year. This entire section is fall crops and they look incredible and they taste even better. This whole garden was actually planted in August because if you want to be eating in the fall, you need to be planting in the summer. So this has been growing now for 2 months and it is perfect, full size, lots of harvest, lots of food here. And I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna share the specific crops and also how cold hardy they are, just how far into the winter you'll be able to get with these in your specific garden. This here is turnips, and turnips are great because you can actually get 2 different harvests out of them. You can eat the root and you can also eat the leaves. The turnip greens are really tasty, especially after they've had some cold weather to sweeten them up. This specific variety that I'm growing here is a hack rye turnip, but almost all turnips are gonna be a good fall winter crop for you. The hack rye turnips, in my experience, can survive, we had -5 Celsius and it did fine with that. So it's fine with some dipping down temperatures, but it can't go very, very late in the season. But those bigger, more hardy turnips, you can get to be a lot colder and still have a harvest. This crop here is a mustard green, and this is one of my really exciting, really cold tolerant crops that I have in the farm for this year. The variety is called Tokyo Beckham, and it is one of the most cold hardy greens that we grow here on the farm. We normally in the summer grow it as just a tiny little baby green, but for cold hardiness and for something hefty and delicious in these colder fall winter months, we're growing them into bigger, more full-size plants. And these can actually get twice as big as what this is right now. The flavor on it is very mild and very sweet and very crunchy, similar kind of to a bok choy, but with a lighter flavor. So I love eating this. You can eat it raw or cooked, and it's an excellent option because of how much it can handle that cold temperature. I'd say I could probably have a night that maybe even dips down to -10 Celsius and have this still be happy. Here on our farm, we mainly grow Johnny Seed's Salanova lettuce. And we love the frilly lettuces for in the spring and the summer, but I discovered that these beautiful butterhead lettuces are very, very cold tolerant. We actually had these once survive all winter long in one of our tunnels. So I know that these can freeze. These can freeze 100% solid, and as long as they defrost during the day, I can harvest them and they're still great for eating. If I was gonna grow only one cold temperature winter crop, it would be this specifically. This is kale, and this is the variety of winter boar kale, and it is so cold hardy. This can survive all winter long here for us. I've heard it can go down to -20, -25 Celsius. With this crop, you get 2 harvests out of it. You get the harvest of all the leaves that are on it, and then it actually survives the winter. So it starts growing again in the spring, and you can get flower shoots that are really tasty. A lot of these other crops, you can only really eat out of them in, the same year that you planted them. Kale, and this winter boar kale specifically, is one of the few things that I have to eat in my farm in March. That's actually the time when there's the least amount of food, and this is always there for me. Another winter hardy kale that we grow is Siberian kale, and you can see the leaf is a little bit different. This is a lot more of a tender and a soft leaf. So this kale, very cold hardy, not quite as cold hardy as the winter boar, but this one is excellent for fresh eating. If you like kale salads, this is the preferred one. But both of these, if you don't like kale, it might be because you've been eating summer kale. Kale flavor completely changes in these cold temperatures. It gets very sweet, very mild. Give it a try. Even if you think kale isn't a crop that you like, you might actually like it when you pick it at this time of year.
Taste test. Let's see, which one do I like more? This one has like more flavor than this one. This is like a lighter taste, so I think it would appeal to more people. Whereas this tastes more like kale, but I really like this one as well. So they're equal but different.
Other really excellent crops are storage crops, root vegetables, things that grow in the ground. Doesn't matter if we get super cold weather and all these greens on the top die off, as long as the carrot that you actually eat down in the ground is fresh and tasty. We find carrots can survive the entire winter for us. They do potentially get some damage on the shoulders, which is not an issue. We just cut it off. But as long as the ground isn't frozen and we can still dig into the ground, anything that we grew in the summer for root crops, we are able to pull up and have fresh, tasty food, which is incredible because I don't know about you guys, but there's only so much space in the fridge for carrots. So it's nice to be able to use the ground, as your carrot fridge for the winter. Another root crop that we grow and love at this time of year is beets. We grow a lot of beets, and same as the carrots, as long as they are in the ground, it doesn't matter, how sad the frost will affect their greens. The roots are still tasty and delicious and fresh and wonderful. So these, great option. One of my favorite greens to eat is Swiss chard. It tastes a lot like spinach, but it's infinitely more easy to grow, which makes it very high on my list of veggies. We eat a lot of it cooked. It's so good in butter. But it loves this cooler weather. So we have a whole bed of it here. Maybe I won't eat a whole bed, but I'll hopefully sell a whole bed. And this stuff does really, really good in this fall time of year. But it doesn't survive the winter. I have a trick though. I have a way for a lot of these things that can't survive those really cold temperatures to do a little bit better and to get a little bit longer. This here is called a low tunnel. And what we've done is we have metal poles stabbed into the ground, and then we just have this plastic draped over it. Under here is Swiss chard. So when we eventually reach those temperatures so cold that the Swiss chard I just showed you dies, this Swiss chard will still be there and still be surviving. We get most of the winter with Swiss chard under these tunnels, and you can use these on lots and lots of crops to get even more food out of a small space. It is incredible what a difference these can make, and it's not like they only have a one time of the year use. These are also amazing in the spring for getting a kickstart to your earlier garden. And my final crop that I want to share with you guys is basically repeats of stuff I've already shown. This is kale, and these are a whole mix of mustard greens. These are not as frost tolerant and as cold hardy as some of the other crops that I've shown you because they're just little babies. They're just tiny, tiny little plants because I planted this stuff only a month ago. And the idea is that you actually pick it as a baby salad green. But as I already said, we got well below freezing, and you can see there's no damage to these crops. So there's lots of things that you can put in very, very late in your season and still get another big harvest out of. As long as you're growing stuff in these families of cool loving vegetables, you can do a lot with them, and you can grow them in a lot of different ways. There is a lot more things that you can grow other than what I've shared with you here on our farm, because I can only share what we actually have growing. We made a video all about things that you can plant in September, and in that we have a really comprehensive list, and we also have instructions for when you need to plant things, you know, for your specific area. So it's a great resource. I know that, you know, it can feel really intimidating sometimes to do these, you know, kind of season extension, you know, gardening techniques. And it's really hard to have to, in the middle of summer when it's so beautiful and so nice and you're drowning in tomato abundance, to have to think about the fall and winter, right? Because that's when you need to be planting these things. But, you know, here on our farm, one of our most finite resources is space. Right? So every single time we're able to get those 2 crops in instead of 1, we get twice as much food. And I know that that is something super valuable for so many of you guys' home gardens out there. So I really encourage you to not be intimidated by these ideas and give it a try in your own gardens.
We've talked this whole video about things that will survive a frost, but now we need to take a moment to remember all the things we've lost.